What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Smoking Tire Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Off the Record. We all love Off the Record here at the Smoking Tire Podcast. You know why? They're here for you. The way Off the Record works is you get a ticket for anything, big, small, or huge. You don't plead guilty. That's for suckers. You go to Off the Record. Off the Record is a service that will connect you to a qualified attorney in the jurisdiction in which you got a ticket, right? You don't have to go to court. You don't have to fight. You don't have to do anything besides make an account at Off the Record and send in a photo, a scan of your ticket, as well as answer a few questions about the circumstances surrounding it. All you have to do is go to offtherecord.com/TST or download the Off the Record app and use code TSTPOD. That's TSTPOD. And we'll give you 10% off all your legal services with Off the Record. That can really add up if you're a heavy user, right? Their success rate is super good. And if they don't get those points off your record, guess what? You don't pay. Offtherecord.com/TST or code TSTPOD on the Off the Record app. Folks, what a real treat. We are in Newport, Rhode Island at the Audrain Museum private clubhouse where we get a chance to sit down with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Wayne Carini. I love Wayne Carini. He is such a sweet guy, so knowledgeable, so enthusiastic, one of the most recognizable faces in the automotive media, bar none. I mean, the guy's been on TV for so many years. You've seen him in Chasing Classic Cars. You've seen him on Jay Leno's Garage. You see him at every major event. The guy seems to be everywhere. And I'll tell you what about this podcast, it does not disappoint. Sitting down and chatting with Wayne Carini about cars is something that is like a lifetime goal for me, and he absolutely delivers. So let's get into it. From the Audrain Clubhouse in Newport, Rhode Island, it's Wayne Carini on the Smoking Tire Podcast.
Clear. Audrain Clubhouse with Wayne Carini.
This is someplace, isn't it?
It's the best. It's the best.
I'm
Thanks for
trying
spending
to
the time.
Oh, it's great to be here.
Yeah.
With you, especially. With you guys.
With you, it's a treat. Yeah. It's a treat. I got a real treat last year when I was with my dad, and we got to explore your barn at your house.
It was great having you there.
So cool.
Thank you.
A man of many stories, and particularly because I watched you, on TV for many, many years. You're sort of one of the more, faux pas, radio faux pas with the phone.
He's a TV man. He's very busy.
My friend.
He's buying and selling cars and, Zeppelins.
Missed that car sale.
Yeah, right. Oh, if you need to have an alert set up,
no.
Don't worry. Listen, there's not a lot of things that we can stop this show for, but bidding on cars in real time.
No, I'm going to go bid on a car at 4:00. It's now about 2:20.
It is. We'll keep an eye. It's 2:26.
Okay, 2:26.
Okay. So what's cross? This is not live. So what's crossing the block at 4?
So at 4, there'll be a 1911 Model T, little sport one with a mother-in-law seat in the back.
Okay. Is that like a rumble seat?
No,
what's
rumble
a
seat, mother-in-law seat. So it's a single seat in the back. Rumble seat was one
like
that
an
opened
ejector
up.
Seat.
Yeah. A rumble seat was something that opened it up from the back of a car. Looked like
rear
a
hinge.
trunk.
Yeah,
Right.
rear hinge. Yeah.
Rear hinge. So this is a mother-in-law seat, 1911 blue.
Does Zach have a photo of a mother? Oh, it's like
it is as isolated. It's with the top up.
Yeah. You can't hear it.
It's outside. It's like how the old school the chauffeur would be in the front outdoors and you're indoors.
Exactly.
This is the same, but they're in the back.
Do you think it was insulting to add that seat for the mother-in-law?
I don't know if it was
helpful?
or not. It was called the mother-in-law seat, but basically it was the caretaker of the property or whatever.
Sure.
That rode along in case the vehicle would die on the side of the road. So the mechanic was riding in the back to fix it.
Yeah.
So,
Which
it got
helpful.
its nickname, the mother-in-law seat, though.
It's a very funny. I've never seen one that's outside of the roof like that. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
What do you think is the value on a 1911 mother-in-law Model T?
I think it's probably 30 to 40 grand.
Oh, wow.
So
it's kind of for a Model T that's on the upper end.
It is, but it's a rare one. And,
I've never seen
1911's an early T too.
Right.
You got to remember that they started, I think, in 1908, late 08, 9, and then but 11's very early.
Do you have any other T's?
I do. I have a 22 Roadster pickup truck.
Okay, that's a pretty late one.
That's a late one.
Yeah.
Yeah. They stopped production in 27, actually.
Yeah.
And then turned into Model A's in 28.
But there was sort of like an overlap of parts.
There was.
In the middle 20s, there was a blend of one into the other.
But early 28 Model A had a lot of Model T parts on it. So, for instance, the steering wheel, which was a red steering wheel, that followed suit with the Model A, and the left-hand brake. In a later Model A, about mid-year, it was on the right-hand side where, by the shifter.
Yeah.
The early ones was left-hand. Little skinny wheels came off of the 27T. They used all the parts. Henry wasn't going to throw anything out.
Oh, it was on the floor where it's going in the next car.
That's right, the next car.
Yeah, our friend John Bothwell is like a big Model T guy.
He is. John's great.
I drove his original T,
Yep.
and then I drove his Super T, and then I drove his racing T.
Yeah.
The racing one was crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The Speedster?
Yeah.
I did 70 miles an hour in that thing. I thought I was going to die.
He dials those things in really well. Yeah. I know John very well. I bought my my Argentinian built.
Oh, you got a Persang?
I got a Persang. I got a Type 51 twin cam.
Oh, cool.
So,
they're a good time.
Oh, I love that.
Beautiful.
What color did you get?
Dark, sort of a darkish blue.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, dark blue, and I sampled a really nice brown leather.
Cool.
Distressed looking leather.
And it's a Bugatti Type 51.
Type 51.
Okay. And I drove the Type 35. What is the difference between
is a single
the 51?
overhead cam. 51's a twin overhead cam.
Whoa.
Okay. But they look sort of the same?
Same thing.
Okay.
Same look. The Type 30, 32, 35, has got a single fuel filler.
Mm-hmm.
And in a later one, they had twin fuel fillers, but they're not. Basically, you pop one open because when you put fuel into a tank very quickly, the air has to disperse.
Right.
So one's for the air to get out.
Oh, one
and
is
the
like an
fuel-
escape valve.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
I bet with a twin cam, I bet that thing hauls.
It goes really well.
How much
Yeah.
more power is that making roughly?
About
then?
185.
But what does it weigh? 1,800 pounds?
Yeah, not even.
Maybe?
Oh my gosh,
Dude, those Bugattis are so fun.
But if you want, I bought it for one thing. My grandson, who's 8 now, I want him, when he's finally able to drive, to really know what it was like to drive a Grand Prix car from the 30s.
You're a good
That's
grandpa.
basically it. I want him to learn and go to tracks and stuff and have that experience because there's no experience like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very, very unique.
Go-karts are close, but when you're really talking about mechanical things, so the engine is all gears. It's turning. You got a supercharger. All this stuff working.
And did you can spec those things a couple of different ways. I know they'll make it exactly like they used to be, and then there's a couple kinds of ways to sort of sneak just a little reliability into there.
Well, in this particular one, there's just, of course, an electric starter.
Right.
They all have
Yeah, that
electric
one you
starters.
want. Yeah.
But there's really nothing. A Type 51 was my choice because I wanted that twin cam and I wanted that look.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that look. You open the hood, oh my God.
It's crazy. It's so
beautiful.
unbelievable.
It's
in
so
there.
beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
So beautiful.
They're a lot of fun.
So I was at Amelia Island one year and I went over to see the car and John said, hey, come on, let's take a ride. So I took a ride with him driving it and I go, oh my God, I got to have one of these. So 2 years later I go and he's got another one there. He says, you drive this time. Oh my God. That was it. I ordered it on the spot. Once you
How
drive
long did
it,
it take to get?
a year.
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Oh, is that it? Oh,
I don't know. If this is just on
That-
a website.
Normally
but it
we have
looks-
a big screen for all of us to look
it's
at.
a dark blue. Yeah.
That
it
is
looks,
just-
it's not, that's not my car, but it looks just like
Sexy.
Same color.
Looks fantastic.
Yeah.
And John drives like a psychopath. Like,
Oh, yeah.
He's the best salesman because he drives hard and fast, and the cars work.
When it came in, my buddy that lives in Newport Beach, I said, Rick, just go over and take a look at the car. John took him for a ride, and he called me. He was like in tears. He goes, oh my God, he just scared me to death.
John is like a guy out of like the 30s. He's
Yes.
Like a prize fighter out of the 30s, though.
Oh, and he's got, he's into Rolls Royces,
Yeah.
Model Ts.
Well, he drives those. He goes in those long distance rallies in his Locomobile.
He drove his Ford Woody from California to Amelia Island.
Yeah, it's a boss move. The guy lives it.
Yeah.
If you're gonna buy an old car from somebody, that's a guy.
And of course, John, Lindsay Bothwell was his uncle. And Lindsay Bothwell was one of the biggest collectors in Southern California.
Yeah, he
of all vintage race
inherited
cars
some
and all.
interesting
Yeah,
stuff from him.
yeah,
That's
so-
where the first Model T came from. Was
But
his
when
uncle.
you got that in your blood,
Yeah.
sort of like me with my dad, and now we pass it on. My grandson is just, he's so into cars. It's unreal.
How could he not be with you?
When he was 5 years old, we took him for I said to him, I said, what do you want more than anything from Pop-Up today on your birthday? He says, I want to go for a ride in a Pierce Arrow. The Pierce Arrow?
What 5-year-old knows what a Pierce Arrow is?
His
guess,
grandson,
But what was unusual was on that ride, he says, Pop-Up, this is my favorite car you own. I love this car. And I said, well, happy birthday. It's your car. I gave it to him for his birthday.
What?
And it was the best move I ever made in my life because now
It's a real tax deduction there.
I've really hooked him.
He's really offloading the assets.
When listen, a lot of trust stuff going out there. He owns 15 cars. He doesn't even know it.
I know exactly this.
He's also trading oil futures like a pro.
He doesn't know it, but in the trust, he can't sell them until he's 35 years old.
That's
By
great.
the time he'll have his head on straight, hopefully.
Sure, yeah.
He's got it on pretty straight right now for an 8-year-old.
Congratulations, it's yours. Yeah, he could not comprehend what that meant, I don't think.
So this year is his 9th birthday, so he's getting the Mole Speedway little hot rod that I had built.
Does he just get a car every year? Is this
Every
how this
3
works?
years.
My grandmother worked at this sort of seniors movie theater down in Delray Beach, and that was her, her pass the time kind of job. And these seniors would pay in $2 bills all the time. And it was her sort of novelty every year to give me my age in $2 bills. And so now in my safe at home, I've got this ridiculous stack of $2 bills that I'll never get rid of.
Right.
But I'm just thinking about, that was the thing. And it's he's just getting cars. It's like Billy Madison.
But the cars are just, there's so much more culture behind them. Yeah, it's so cool.
Just,
yeah.
How wonderful of a thing. It's just a funny thing to think about.
A lot of people, I love my business and I love buying cars. And so instead of having, money in the stock market or, bonds or anything for the kids, I just give them cars.
I mean, I love it.
And I get to enjoy them for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I pass them on to them. So I'll give you a really great example. I have an autistic daughter, Kimberly. And so in her trust was a Hudson Italia. And that Italia was meant to better her life. We had enough money saved for her and stuff, but so just recently, we decided that she should have her own house so that when we pass, they can sell the estate, but she can't. That nobody can touch her home for the rest of her life. And an aide lives there with my sister-in-law. So we buy the house, and I get a call about 3 weeks after we closed on the house, and they said, "Would you sell your Hudson Italia? It's a museum." And I go, maybe. And I said, well, how much do we pay for the house? So I told him the amount we paid for the house. I said, that's what I want for it. He said, okay, where do I send the money? So the Hudson
Hudson bought the house.
Bought the house. And that's what it was meant to do when we put it in her
How about
trust.
that?
So it works.
Well, I mean, you're so knowledgeable about cars that you can probably invest in cars in the top single-digit percentages of anybody in the world.
You have to have a gut feeling, and my rule is I have to like it. So in other words, just because I see what the market's doing, for instance, and I don't want to disparage anybody's collecting, but if it's, let's say, a certain type of muscle car, and I go, that doesn't really turn me on, just because they're doing well, I'm not going to invest in it.
Yeah.
Because my theory is that if the world goes to zero tomorrow, you better like what's in your garage.
That's a good point. I mean, that's why I like investing in cars, is because the odds of stock goes up, stock goes down, stock might go to zero. Car probably won't go to zero.
Won't go to zero, and you get to enjoy it.
And in the meantime,
you
I'm
can't
having
drive that bond or that stock that went to zero.
So we were just talking about this on another show, because there's now these new things where it's like a fund, where individuals can buy shares of cars, typically like hypercars and stuff.
Right.
And I am not that into that, because I believe that you can buy a collectible car at almost any price point.
That's true.
Including the low four figures. Sure. You could buy something weird that's not worth much, but that might go from $3,000 to $6,000.
Exactly.
And you got 100% up on that.
Right.
So how do you feel about those type of funds where people are investing their money in cars that they don't get to drive, look at in their own garage, enjoy?
I'm not really into that. I like to buy something and know where it is, feel it, touch it, look at it, do that kind of stuff. If I'm going to invest in something that I can't feel or touch or drive, I'm going to buy a bond.
Yeah.
Just a normal bond, pays 5.5%. But, those people that are skeptical of jumping into the marketplace with not a lot of knowledge, this is a good way to do it, to feel like they're part of the program, like they're part of the industry. It probably works for them. It really wouldn't work too well for me.
I mean, you can do it with very small money. You can do it with $100.
Right.
You're not buying a car for $100. But like, it's not what I like about cars. Is I like the enjoying it while I've got it, and hopefully I do a little something on the other end. But have you found in the past that the Wayne Carini ownership gives you a little bump?
You know, when I sell my cars, normally I don't even advertise that it's Wayne Carini.
Really?
Yeah. I know that one of these days we're going to have an auction, probably right at my barn, and we'll sell probably 90% of the cars.
You think you're going to be there, or you think your casket's going to be?
No,
right?
I want to be there.
It would be funny if your funeral was a car auction,
well,
and it was like, and lot number 412, it's Wayne's actual body.
Wayne's sitting in his Bentley. You get both for the same amount of money. Probably not an upside.
For an extra 200, we'll put Wayne in the car.
That's right.
Oh, but you do foresee a clearing at some point?
Probably. I mean, we're trying to do that right now, get the collection down to manageable amount. I'm 72 years old, and so I started looking. You reach that plateau of 70 years old, and you start thinking a little closer, especially when you see your friends dying. Yeah. And my goal is 115. You got to have a lofty goal in life. So 115, I think
that's why
good.
Your blood boy is sitting just off camera, right?
But I think 115 is a good. People say, when are you going to retire? I said 113, and then I'll play golf. But until that time, I'm into cars.
Well, your work is so passion driven. I can't imagine you not doing it.
No, and even if I didn't have my shop, I mean,
you're still driving stuff.
I still have cars.
What does manageable mean for you in terms of a collection?
Manageable right now would be under 50 cars.
That's a lot of cars.
Yeah.
What do you have right now?
I would never say that.
Okay.
My wife might actually find out how many cars we own.
How many cars does your grandson own? Yeah.
My grandson owns 15.
Right.
Yeah. But that's
my autistic daughter has 12.
And your dog has 14.
Nah, well.
And do you make a point, is it obviously you love the cars, obviously you like looking at them in your barn or in your place, and obviously you believe them to be at least reasonable investments, if not good ones. Does driving them feel like a chore ever?
So the answer is it's a chore to prepare the cars to actually get them to drive, because after a while, after they sit sometimes for a year, carburetors got to come apart, the brake systems and all that. I have my Triumph TR4 that I'm going to go racing next weekend, and I haven't touched it in 2 years. Well, the master cylinder shot, and the water pump's leaking, and so these are the type of things. But driving them really is a great feeling. But people say, when do you know when it's time to sell a car? So you drive the car, and you're having a great time driving it, and you come to your house and you park it in front of your house, and you're walking to the house, and if you don't stop halfway between the house and car and look back at that car and go, oh, damn, I love that car, then it's time.
Yeah.
If you just walk in the house and don't even look at it,
it
may be time to sell. It's sort of like not kissing your wife goodbye in the morning, or I'm not saying that, but it's just that passion is there when you look at something and after you've driven it and you go, oh, man, I'm so glad that I own that car. And if you don't have that feeling, just do something else.
Yeah.
And when I sell cars, now recently I've just sold 3 big cars in my collection. And I'm not a person that looks back. When I make up my mind I'm going to sell something, that's it. It's gone. I don't regret it the day after. Okay,
well,
I miss it maybe.
If you've gotten to that point where it's going for sale, the mind has been made. You're mentally,
made up your mind.
You're somewhere else anyway. Yeah.
And sometimes too, and I'm a believer in, if somebody calls you, for instance, the Hudson Italia, it wasn't really for sale, but when somebody makes you an offer, you say, well, I could maybe get a little more money if I sold it privately, or if I go to auction maybe, but 90% of the time, your first offer is your best offer.
Bird in the hand. Bird in the hand.
That's it. So
I just did that. I sold my Ferrari 328, and I had too many cars. Between my wife and I, 9, which is not as many as you, but I don't really have a team or anything like that, and I don't like ranching. So that was too much. So it's -1, and I had a friend who had been asking me about it for about 2 years. You ever want to sell? You ever want to sell? And I said, you know what? I don't really want to prep it for auction. I don't want to deal with the scrutiny. I don't want to deal with the headaches, the photo shoots, and whatever. I said, if I can sell this car with 1 phone call, and I did, and I don't regret it. I had my adventures with the car, had a great time with it, and time to move on. But it was that effort of
Sometimes you think of what the car's purpose is. So I had a Lincoln.
Guys, let's take a quick break for today's sponsor, The Lasso. You may have never heard of The Lasso, but they are here to help solve a problem that we've all had. The problem? Selling your car. It stinks. Selling to an individual can be a pain, right? You got to get it detailed, take a bunch of photos, write a listing, deal with the auction sites, or worse, meet a stranger in a public place and hope to not get scammed or murdered. It's stressful, and your time is worth money. And a lot of people, they want to sell their car to a dealer or trade it in. But if you really wanted to get the best possible offer, you'd have to go to every dealer in town, and that would be like a full-time job. You work for a living. Who's got that kind of time, folks? That's where The Lasso comes in. Here's how it works. You list your car on The Lasso, which takes 3 minutes or less. Car sellers then answer a few questions about the condition of their car and post it so that way it gets in front of hundreds of dealers. Then the dealers bid against each other. You receive offers within a day of posting your car. You get to sit back and relax as multiple offers roll in. You just accept the best offer. The dealer's offers are competitive, and a majority of sellers accept an offer quickly, but there's never any pressure. Then the sellers just drop their car off at the dealer with the best offer, sign the paperwork, and get paid. Cha-ching! The Lasso is here working for you, not the dealership, so their entire job is to get you the most money possible. Head over to thelasso.com/thesmokingtire. That's TheLasso.com/thesmokingtire right now to get multiple real offers on your car fast. And thank you to The Lasso for sponsoring today's podcast. Now let's get back to it.
38 Lincoln LeBaron Coupe, a fabulous car, unbelievable. Looks like a huge, big hot rod. So I'd taken it to a couple shows. I take it to Pebble Beach because Lincoln is featured at Pebble. And I win the Lincoln Award with it. So, I mean, now
it's time to sell.
I've won the Lincoln Award. Yeah. I brought it home. Now what do I do with it?
Yeah.
You know, do I take it to cruise nights? It's not a cruise night car. You know, it's just one of those cars that it's so great to look at. It's cool to drive, but it's a big car. And when Edsel Ford gave me that trophy as I crossed the block at Pebble Beach, it went in my mind, I think this is the time to sell
Sure.
it. I had a
Doesn't get
phone
better than
call
that.
from a museum out in California, in Costa Mesa. They said, we want your Lincoln.
What
and
car
we went
museum
back
is
and
in
forth.
Costa Mesa?
Singleton Collection.
Oh, yeah, cool, okay.
They're just Newport Beach. They're actually
Sure.
right by the John Wayne Airport.
Yeah.
And they're building a new building. But, you know, going to a good home, and a lot of people say, well, I have to have my car go to a good home. When the money's in the bank, you forget about the good home.
care about the home.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You know?
I'll give you 50% over, but I'm going to light it on fire when I get home. No problems.
I wouldn't do that, but it's still
Sure.
So I've sold 3 cars that way recently, and I think it's the right move. So when people call me now and they make me an offer,
yeah,
we'll negotiate.
If the offer's good, let it fly.
Exactly right.
Is there an era of cars or like decades that you found require way more work and therefore you don't enjoy keeping around as much, or like, you know, cars from the 10s versus the 70s versus 40s?
No, not
or
really. I
anything?
mean, it's all the same to me. You know, I think that it's the enjoyment you get out of them. And I own everything. So I have a 1900 Locomobile steam car, 1901 Oldsmobile, 1910 Kelsey, a 1908 Baker Electric. I like cars from that era. I got brass cars. I got cars from the 30s. Not too many from the 40s, but I've got Woody Wagon, that kind of stuff. 50s, not too much, but 60s I like. So probably my favorite car to drive in my collection is my Shelby GT350. I've got a 65.
Yeah,
number
I
one.
remember seeing that at your
Number
barn. That is
150.
delightful.
And it's a great car because people say, it's kind of chip paint here and there, and it's this and that. And when are you going to restore? I said, never.
Yeah, never.
Because it's so cool to drive and not worry about it.
Sure.
And friends come, like Matt, you would come, and I'd say, hey, Matt, take it out for a ride.
You actually did offer it to me, and I
Yeah.
didn't have time, but I
Yeah.
said I would come back
But
and have a go in it. It's really lovely.
Those are the
very
type
nice.
of things. I love sharing my cars with other people,
Yeah.
too. I mean, I have to trust them, but when I trust somebody, I mean,
It's interesting to me that your shop, which is called F40 Motorsports, I mean, I think of 1987 to 89 Ferrari F40 when I think of that, and you do a lot of work on Ferrari. Yeah. But whenever I hear you talk passionately about cars, it's never about those.
Well,
it's always about something that's obscure and old. And why the dichotomy there?
I went through that phase of Ferraris. I guess that's a way to call it, a phase. I mean, I loved Ferraris as a kid, as a teenager. I would go to Kennedy's window and look in. My father would drive me there once a month, and I'd look in the window and go nuts over. And I got to restore a lot of Ferraris. Got to know Luigi Chinetti and Francois Sicard and all the guys, and was really into it. Chinetti owned a 365P, which was a center steering car. Triposti car.
Yeah.
That was in every magazine. It was,
Is it
cartoons.
the white one?
The white one.
The white one, yeah.
So one day, I mean,
Does Kidston have that car now? Who's got that car?
That's owned by a Mexican gentleman, and he keeps down in Texas. But
Yeah.
really great guy, a great family. But I looked at that car in Chinnetti's basement when I was a kid, and I finally got to restore it for Mr. Chinetti and show it at Meadowbrook many years after, and then it was invited to Pebble. And I think probably one of my favorite Pebbles was the day I got to drive that car on the show field with my wife on one side and my best friend on the other side, and just go and show it, and wasn't being judged, because we didn't want the car to be judged. We wanted to be judged for the next owner. Mr. Chinetti wanted that. But Pininfarina was there that day, Sergio, and so we wanted to show him, because that was one of the first cars that he had actually penned himself.
Oh, okay.
So it was a great, and just a wonderful car.
How was that car to drive?
It was cool. When Chinetti owned it and I finished restoring it, it sat in my garage at my house for probably 3 years. And when my daughters were growing up, I had child seats on either side.
That's
I would
awesome.
drive them around town.
It's funny how often 3 is the right number of seats, isn't it? It's like no one really did that math very often, but like 3 is the right number sometimes. Yeah.
But you'd never lose that passion for Ferraris. But you were getting back to your question. I just like everything, and I want cars that nobody else has.
Sure.
I want stuff that maybe, I just bought a dual gear. Well, there's 30 of them.
Those are cool. Yeah,
it's
those
just
are
a
rad.
Cool, funky car.
Yeah.
I'm looking for somebody to sell it to restore it, to maybe go to Pebble with it. But I love unusual cars that nobody else knows about, too.
Over time, has your personal collecting taste gone from the stuff that the mainstream audience wants? Okay, now the stuff that the purists want. Okay, now the stuff and now you're off into the deep
It's
nerd
whatever
woods.
I want. I mean, and I grew up. My cousin built hot rods. So my dad had a shop at the old family farm. We had a 350-acre fruit farm. My uncle's, and my father had his shop in the old cow barn, and he converted it into his restoration shop. And my cousin had the lean-to next to it, and he built hot rods.
Wow.
My father restored classic cars and Model A's, and Candy Pool Sports Car Shop was a half a mile away from our shop.
And where was this?
In Glastonbury, Connecticut.
Okay.
Candy Pool is one of the best race car drivers, and he built a car called a PBX, and my dad painted it, and that's still a famous car today. But I got a little taste of everything.
Yeah.
Sports cars, Maseratis, Ferraris, and then I hot rods with my cousin. He'd build these things out of scraps of metal. And my father restoring classic cars, Duesenbergs, Packards. My father was the founder of the Model A Restorers Club in 1951. So Model A's were in
That's
our family.
so funny. Model A's were only like 20 years old at that time.
Well, that's why he
so
did it. So
interesting.
he restored a Model A for a local farmer.
Imagine a restorers club, and it's like, yeah, we're doing a 2013 Mustang
Right.
today.
Yeah.
It's just
That's
a
what
weird.
it
It's a
is.
weird scale.
But nobody had thought about restoring these cars.
Yeah.
So this guy brought him his Model A to paint, and he restored it to perfection. And the farmer said, well, I'm not going to pay you. That's not what I wanted. And so my father kept the car.
Huh.
He went to a car show with Duesenbergs, Packards, and brass cars being shown, and he pulled in. They said, well, you can't drive that in here. You got to park across the street. That's some old used car.
Yeah.
And he got so pissed that on the way home, he said to his good friend Bill Hall, he says, I'm going to get a club that they can't come to.
Yeah.
I'm going to get the
You know what
Model
this
A
is?
club.
This is the Emery outlaw story. That's basically it. They wouldn't let Emery into the regular Porsche stuff, and so he began a whole other
That's right.
thing that he's now the emperor of.
That's right. He's
Yeah.
done a great job of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I love Rod. He's fantastic.
Yeah, we're gonna be with his dad here at the Audrey at the fall event.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we're gonna be doing an episode of my show, but we're gonna be doing a panel about custom built cars and hot rods and things like that.
The car that you brought, I guess it would have been 2 years ago when I came to the Audrain Concours with my dad, your Jaguar.
Oh, the SS100.
With the interior.
Yeah, the alligator.
Oh, my God. This interior is unbelievable.
That car belonged to Dave Garraway. Dave Garraway was the most famous television person, almost the most famous person in the world back in the early 50s.
Yeah.
Because he was the first live broadcast of any television show.
Right.
And he loved cars, and he loved racing that SS100.
That wasn't the original interior? You redid that?
No, it was all redone, but he in 1953 put an alligator interior in it. He was flamboyant.
Yeah. But my father was in the fashion business. He was the president of Ralph Lauren and knows leather goods, and he doesn't know a ton about cars. But when he sees materials, he's like, holy shit, this is like when I showed him a Singer for the first time, he just looks over at me, and I'm talking about Ed Pink racing engines and whatever, and he's like, Matt, there's like 50 grand in leather in this car. I go, yes, there is, Dad.
The hell with the engine.
Yeah. But look at that thing, Zach. That alligator interior is
incredible.
So unbelievable.
On the steering wheel,
I think that's one of the prettiest cars in the world.
It's beautiful.
The flowing lines.
Does it drive good?
It drives good. Yeah. I've had it a couple times on the track up at Lime Rock.
Track.
That's awesome. Yeah. That is so cool.
Yeah. I'll tell you a quick story about that. So Peter Kumar from Gullwing Motorcars tried to sell me that car. He had bought it. And I said, I don't really need it. Well, we went to the Greenwich Concours, and it was sitting. We're there at 6:30 in the morning on the show field, my buddy Ralph Morano and I. And Ralph says, did you see the alligator interior of this car? Oh, my God. And I went, this is the car Peter's been trying to sell me. I love it. I called Peter.
Did you not know about the alligator interior?
Well, I did, but he showed me from pictures. But you got to see it live.
No, it's the texture of it is what really sells it.
So
I
called Peter. It was 6:30 in the morning. Now I called Peter and I said, he woke him up. I said, are you here at the show? Well, I'm coming at about noon. I said, I'm buying this Jaguar. Come and I want to negotiate a price, and let's get it done. So now it's white. It's funky. It's got chips, and its patina is really great. And I'm never going to touch it. Well, we have a birthday party for my wife, and one of her fellow employees takes it out for a ride without my permission, and backing it back into the barn, he smashes the left front and left rear fender, crushed him against the garage door. So now I got to fix it. So
now you got a choice.
We painted the fender, and it looked so bad. I said, rip it apart. We're painting this car black. So now it's black wheels. But that's a pretty famous car in that Dave Garraway wanted to get a little more power out of the car, and so he got Jaguar to sell him a 120 engine.
They would do that kind of stuff back
He
in
was
the
the
day.
first guy.
All of them got Jaguar, Bentley. You wanted to buy a racing engine, they'll just sell it to you.
So that's a racing 120 engine in that car.
It's probably way too much power.
Well, it's got good power. It's got good power, without a doubt.
That's awesome.
Do you think there are anything about cars that are like sacred? I mean, you repainted the car a different color because you liked it. You're tracking things that other people might say should just sit on a lawn and not be messed with. Seems like you just want it to use it how you want to use it.
That's how I feel. People ask me, should I paint it back to the original color? And let's say the original color is this turquoise color. And he says, but I hate the color. I said, well, it's your car. You paint it any damn color you want.
Yeah.
If somebody doesn't like it after and you sell it, well, but if you look at it as an investment, painting it the original color probably is the best way to go. Sometimes it's not the best way because it's not as
That's the original
pleasing.
color's ugly.
Right.
The original color's ugly.
Right. Brown. Baby brown or
Yeah.
something like that. Baby poop brown.
Right, yeah.
I was going to say it, but whatever. But it's sacred when the only time they're sacred is when they're original.
Sure.
And don't touch it. My father used to restore cars that came in. If I had that same train of thought when I was working for him, he'd say, rip this car apart and sand all the paint off it. I would have said back then, oh, why should we do it? Look, it's beautiful. I had a guy come in and do that once. He said, I want you to paint the whole car. So I buffed it. I detailed it. I touched it up, and he came. I says, it's all done. How could it be done? It's only been 2 weeks. I said, just come and look. He says, oh, my God.
Yeah.
How did you paint it so fast? I didn't paint it.
Yeah.
I just cleaned it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good paint correction goes a long way.
That's right.
Guys, today's episode is also brought to you by AutoTempest. When you're looking to buy a car, it's smart to cast a wide net and check as many places as possible. AutoTempest makes this easier than anywhere else, bringing together listings from all the top sites online like Cars.com, TrueCar, eBay Motors, Carvana, and more, so you get them all in one place rather than having to search a bunch of sites separately. For instance, I am looking for a very specific car right now. It's a mass-produced car, but it's a collectible car, and they're not easy to find. I hate checking all of these sites individually, which I've found myself wanting to do every week, just waiting for the right car to pop up. AutoTempest makes it so easy. They're searching all these cars in one place. It brings it all together so I don't have to go to each different website on a new tab and just type in all the same criteria again and again and again and again. AutoTempest has me covered, even letting me compare it with results from Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist nationwide, not just in my local area. AutoTempest now has apps for iOS and Android, so you can use the website or have AutoTempest right on your home screen. AutoTempest has all the cars with one search. Head over to autotempest.com/tire right now so they know we sent you. That's autotempest.com/tire and start searching for your next car in one search.
Yeah,
That's right.
I bet you got a great detailer.
Yes. Yeah, Marius is a great detailer, and he's become a great painter. So I used to be the painter. Even doing my show, I would be on the road filming, for 4 or 5 days in a row, and I'd come home and they'd line up the cars. It'd be like 4 cars for me to paint, and I would just paint into the evening and try to get them all done in a couple of days. And then one day I said, "Why don't you just go in the booth?" He's my detailer. I said, "You're going to have to buff the imperfections out if you screw it up." And he comes out, and I go, "Oh my God."
When
did you learn how to do this? He says, "I don't know. I just went in and did it." I said, "You're hired."
Just has the perfect natural airbrush stroke.
So when the guy that's going to buff the car is painting the car, he's going to take a little more time to prepare it, a little more time to do the job, and it comes out better.
That's
very
like
little
when
buffing.
that's like when the host of a show is also the editor. If you know how to host for an editor, you become a better show host.
That's right, and prep is so important on anything you do.
Yeah.
Preparation is the way to get perfection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of show hosting, I mean, you're one of the most natural television hosts I've ever seen. You are literally exactly the same person, whether you're on camera or not, which is harder than it looks.
Yeah, well, it's easy to be yourself.
It is. it is. For certain people, it is. Yeah. For other people, the camera changes them.
Well, absolutely. And I told the guy that started the show, Jim Ostrowski, when he asked me to do a pilot, I said, "Listen, I'm not an actor. I don't want to be an actor. I don't want to memorize lines." I said, "So if you think it's interesting what I do and how I present myself, okay, well, let's try it."
What was his pitch to you?
This is really the greatest story. So I had bought the Hudson Italia, and I called Donald Osborne, our friend Donald. I'd known Donald now for close to 50 years.
We're talking to him on Monday.
Yeah, he told me this morning. And so I told him about this Italian-bodied car, and he loves Italian cars, a Hudson Italia. He said, "Oh, my God, can I come down and look at it?" Then he said, "Can I write the story?" So I tried to buy this Hudson Italia when I was 16 years old, and I finally got it when I was 52.
Same car.
Wow.
Same car. I worked and worked and worked and worked. And the brother owned it, left it to his sister, and the sister worked me whenever she needed anything fixed at her house. I'd go fix it for nothing, anything at all, just to keep my foot in the door.
Just to be first in line when it came time.
And that day came, and I was able to buy the car. So Donald wrote an article called First Love. It was the first love that I ever had for a car. And it appeared in the New York Times, and Jim Ostrowski owned my production company, and I didn't know him from Adam at that time. He read that article on Sunday and called me Monday morning, said, "I'd like to do a TV show about you." I go, "What do you mean? Who are you?" "Well, I'm Jim Ostrowski. I'm from Essex, Connecticut, and I'm 20 minutes away.
That's right by you, yeah.
Let me come up and talk to you." So he says, "I'm doing stuff for the Discovery Channel," and I said, "Well, what is it? Is it like a documentary?" He says, "No, it's a full-time TV show." And I've got the camera in the car. I said, "How much does it pay?" He says, "Nothing." But you never know what could happen.
Yeah.
I said, well, as long as you don't get in my way, I don't memorize lines. I'm running a business here.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna stop. If you say, wait, could you do that again? No double takes. There's no 2 takes. Once, and if you don't get it right the first time, if you don't hit that button on the camera, it's not recording, you're never gonna get it again. Because you can't redo things in life. The first time is always the best time. You try to do it again, and it falls apart.
Yeah, the authentic. It's each time it's 10% less authentic when you have to redo it. Yeah.
So that's how it all started.
That's wild from a newspaper article. It's not even like he's like that's pretty impressive that he could pull that out of not meeting you, not seeing a video clip, to go from a newspaper article to television is an awfully big jump.
It's a nod to his vision, but also like Don's writing, your show,
Donald's
like
writing,
all of that.
And so the story goes. So now Donald, I always say Donald got me my TV show because he wrote that great article. And so now years go by, and What's My Car Worth called me, and they said, we'd like you to be the co-host. Bill Stevens is leaving, and we want you to be the co-host of the show. And I said, I'm kind of really tied up with this chasing classic car stuff and have my own, my own business. But there's this guy, Donald Osborne. I would highly recommend Donald. He's a brilliant guy. He's knowledgeable. He's so personable. And I love him. He's one of my best friends.
He's very well dressed. You don't even have to provide him with wardrobe.
No.
And they hired him.
There you go. Repaid.
So now, repaid. So now Donald, after about the second year of the show, Donald goes out to Scottsdale, and I see him at a restaurant. And he comes over, and he looks doom and gloom. I said, what are you so down about? He says, I went to Barrett-Jackson today, and What's My Car Worth was filming. So I said, I didn't know we were filming today. And they said, oh, we are, but you're not. They'd never let him know that he was no longer part of the show.
Get out of here.
Honest to God. Never let him know. He was so depressed.
Oh.
And I said, Donald, things happen for reasons in life. And I'm a big believer in that. He says, something good will come out of this. It wasn't a month later that Leno calls me, and he says, what do you know about Osborne? Is he a good guy? I'm thinking about having him on my show. I said, he's fantastic. Now he gets repaid. So now he owed me once. Now he owes me twice.
So which of his cars are you trying to buy?
Yeah, he's first in line for an Osborne car. So he's a very, very solid individual, Donald. We love him. So if you're gonna listen, if someone's got to owe you, he's good for it.
He's an opera singer.
I've heard.
Yeah, he's an opera singer.
Literally, I've heard him sing. It's unbelievable.
Hart School of Music up in Hartford, and he actually was in operas in New York City. So my daughter went to Hart School of Music for a summer course once, and so Donald found out. Well, Donald called her constantly, giving her recommendations and stuff, and they became best friends because of that. And so when she was getting married, she called Donald and asked him to sing at her wedding.
There you go.
So he and Frank flew out from California. He was living in Palm Springs at the time. Sang at the wedding, got back on the plane and flew home.
So now we're down to minus. Now it's a -1. It's a -1. That counts as one. Yeah.
Great people.
How do you? Because I struggle with this a lot. Running a brick and mortar business, along with the production of content, which involves travel and being away. How do you balance your life and stay sane?
I never thought that it would come to the point where we are, where we got to. I mean, I thought maybe there was a season of chasing classic cars in there, maybe 2. I mean, a long shot was 2. And then when it became this big elephant in the room and we were on the road 185 to 200 days a year, and, being away from my family was my biggest fear. Oh my gosh, my clothes are going to be on the lawn when I get home, But, my wife's a peach and she's a saint. We have an autistic daughter. And so it was very difficult in the beginning. But once we got in a good rhythm where, I was picking the times that I wanted to travel, although when a car appeared and we had to go get it right away, there was just like call up and we're on the plane tomorrow morning.
Yeah, you never know when Toyotathon's happening.
Right. But I mean, it seemed to balance out. The guys in the shop, they've all been there for so long. A great manager and great help in the shop, and so it worked. I always looked at things a little different. When I was growing up, let's say I was 13 years old, and there was a guy that lived down the street, and he had a big house, and he had 2 cars in the garage, and his wife was home taking care of the children. He had 3 children, and I'm really working hard to make a paycheck, and I'm saying, how the hell is he doing that? His wife doesn't work. He's got a job. But in life, things, they sort of just happen. You worry about it, but then they all sort of take care of themselves. As long as you work hard at everything you do, things sort of take care of themselves. And so I'm a believer in that.
Are you good at sort of stepping back and taking that more
No.
macro view?
No.
So,
Not at all.
related to that, how did you maintain like the quality? Because your shop has a great reputation for good reason. How did you maintain that when you were now on the road for?
I'm still the boss.
Yeah.
I'm still the boss, and I micromanage every job that's in there. So I'd be on the phone constantly with them. They'd send me pictures every day. I talk to every one of my customers when we're doing a job. So it was just added to my other. But you just do it, and it seems to just happen.
Do you run into the issue where the customers really want you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Once you become,
But that's
center,
the part that I'm trying to step back from. I'm trying to step back from that. We need Wayne here every minute of every day. So my manager talks to 90% of my clients. We make that introduction to them. But when it comes right down to the nitty gritty, it's me.
Yeah.
It's taking the fall. It's me that's taking the hit if something goes wrong.
Sure.
It's like that, and people don't understand how difficult it is to actually run a business today.
Yeah.
You got to look at everything, but when you get a rhythm going, it seems to work well. And when I'm there, I got to say, I think the shop runs really well.
Yeah.
When I'm not, they're still doing stuff, and they're still
Sure.
okay, but everybody's been trained to that level of quality. And so I went to school to be an art teacher, and I think that teaching skills. So I teach my guys what I expect of them, and then I expect perfection. That's all. Perfection.
well, at the level of work that you're doing with restoration, the clients expect that. They're paying for it, and
Right.
and some of the cars are going to be judged by professionals later, and
And we when we're doing a restoration, we need a due date.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to Pebble with this car, and
Yeah.
oh, by the way, it's 4 weeks from today, and the engine's still not in the car.
Yeah. Sounds like a plot for a television show.
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is.
Are there cars that can't be restored, where the parts don't exist and can't really be made, or is anything restorable?
So what we look at is when we're talking to our clients about restoring a car is financially, are you going to be upside down in this car? Are you going to be totally, upside down so it doesn't make any sense? And a lot of the times people will say, well, I don't care. I want that car restored. And so there are certain cars when they're really rusty and the frame is really bad. You can rebuild anything. But when you start looking at financially, it just doesn't make a lot of sense a lot of times. So, but we'll take a shot at most anything.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have a Restomod that somebody else was doing and had 4 years worth of work and about $600,000 into it. And then the guy wanted me to finish it, and I said,
that's got to be
we
every
can't do
shop's
that.
nightmare is
we
doing
can't
that.
do that. And he pushed me, and we finally started the project, and then we got about $200,000 into it, and he said, I'm pulling the plug on it because I just bought a new boat, and I've changed my focus in life.
Oh, God.
And so
I think we made that exception for you.
I ended up buying the car. Now I don't know what to do with it.
20 cents on the dollar, I hope.
It wasn't even that. But
Really?
wow.
Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't
Wow.
even
All
that.
right. Well, hopefully you do something fun with
it'll
it.
be on Bring a Trailer very soon at no reserve.
Yeah.
Has 3D printing helped you guys at all? Like, instead of sourcing an obscure part, you can just remanufacture it?
We can. So we, in the Hartford area where Pratt & Whitney is, Pratt & Whitney Aircraft was a fantastic employer in our area, a fantastic company to work for. But Pratt & Whitney never really made anything. It was assembly. So they had small machine shops all over our state of Connecticut and everywhere else that made the parts for the engine, and then they'd bring them all to their facility in East Hartford, and they'd assemble the engine. So they designed the engine, sourced out the manufacturing. So we've got really superb machine shops in our area that can make anything.
So interesting.
And so we know where to go.
Sikorsky also is up there, right?
Sikorsky is there, yeah. Unfortunately, just lost some of their employees.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they lost a couple of big contracts, Sikorsky being the helicopter manufacturer. But we're talking about Pratt & Whitney. So Hamilton Standard was an offshoot of Pratt & Whitney, and they made propeller blades when propeller engines. And so they had a facility in East Hartford, Connecticut. Mongoose was the name of the facility, and where they tested each propeller that went out the door. You know what they use for power to do that? Duesenberg engines.
Oh, cool.
So they had 3 Duesenbergs they bought. They brought them to South Glastonbury's Midway garage. They took the engines out, and in the backyard today, underground about 20 feet, are all the old Duesenbergs without engines in them.
Are those?
That's the lore I've heard. I can't prove it, but
Did they choose those at the time?
most powerful engine and
Okay.
reliable engine.
And then they just kept it because it's like, well, if
They
if
did,
it's
and they
worked,
finally
it's
sold them
worked.
about 8 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I
about 8
wonder if
years
they're
ago.
going back into cars.
I don't know, with all the
crazy.
Duesenberg guys, around.
All like 30 cars they
Yeah,
ever made
right,
or whatever
right,
it was.
right.
Have you ever had a Duesenberg?
I've got one, and right now I've restored a lot of them with my dad, not me personally.
Do they live up to their reputation?
Oh, yeah, a fabulous car.
Yeah?
Fabulous car. Donnie Gould, I just talked to him yesterday, and he's on the California Melee with his. And it doesn't like those hills. Yeah. So they're going up a lot of hills, and it got overheated.
Huge, heavy car.
Yeah, heavy car.
Wait, what was I just gonna say? We're talking about, I don't know. I blanked.
Duesenberg
Moving on.
helicopters?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Moving on.
helicopters, Duesenberg.
Oh no!
Assembly
We're talking about
manufacturing.
cars that can't be restored. If you have to make a part, and Zach was asking about 3D printing, it's typically made in the way it sort of would have been made, right, by hand and milled or
Oh yeah,
lathed
so
or whatever.
3D printing is just something to focus on so that you can make a copy of it or something like that. You're not going to make a 3D part of a gear in a car.
Right.
You make that, and then what you do is you send that, and it gets CAD designed. And then it goes into the CNC machine. You'll make most anything in the world that you want out of a CNC machine, as long as it's
It just helps
programmed
you get
properly.
size and shape and
Yeah,
everything. Wow.
that's all. And you make sure it works.
Yeah.
And it meshes with everything, and then you send it out, and it's made out of metal.
I am watching the clock, so you are not going to miss your auction. But I
Okay,
want to
good.
talk real quick. We got a couple questions from our fans.
Okay, cool.
And we're here, or I'm here to drive in the veteran run.
What are you going to drive?
We're driving the Yale, the 1903 Yale.
That's a great car.
And we got a quick lesson in it from the Audrain team before. I learned this car in 25 seconds. This is so easy to drive this car. It's fast. We did 30 miles an hour in it, no problem, which is fast for 1903. It's so smooth.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. And this is a London to Brighton veteran car that Nick Schorsch said finished top 10 in London to Brighton in 2019.
That's great.
So super excited. What are you driving?
So we're driving a 1901 Oldsmobile Curve Dash.
Oh, is it the same one you
Same
brought
one,
from
except for it's dialed
2
in a
years
little
ago?
bit better. We were going, Ralph Morano and I were going up a hill the first year, and a jogger came up next to us and asked some questions about the car, and then he took off and left us in his dust.
We got passed by a jogger in the 1902 Packard 2 years ago. That wasn't great.
And then
Curve Dash Olds is a tiller.
Tiller
right?
steering.
That's intense.
Yeah, tiller steering. And then the Baker, so I have a 1908 Baker electric. That's also tiller. And so that'll
That's
be
a
out there.
side tiller, right? Don't you drive one of those sitting kind of
is.
side saddle?
That is, yeah, it's a side tiller.
Now, does your Baker electric have an updated battery pack of some kind?
It does, yeah. It's
Yeah,
got
Tesla
updated-
pack.
Yeah, well, it's not quite that.
Doesn't burn out
They're
for
golf
12
cart
miles.
batteries,
Yeah, it's a
basically.
100 kilowatt hour pack.
Deep
Yeah.
cell, 6 volt, 12 6 volt deep cell batteries.
Okay, what is the range of the Baker?
We have no idea. We're about to find out tomorrow.
Oh, you brought it out.
I did.
Oh, awesome.
But we have backup batteries.
Okay.
So I bought
Hot swap.
Yeah, we're going to do a hot swap at lunch. Hopefully, we'll
What
make
was
it
the
to
range
lunch.
before this
They
new
they
battery?
say about 30 miles.
30?
Yeah.
That's still impressive
They
for
were
the time.
they're
Wow.
they're cool, those Bakers. When I went to that San Marino Concours in California, there was a guy driving one around just lapping, and he was towing a trailer that had some kind of automated one-man band thing where the
Oh, cool.
movement of the wheels played a song, and he was just lapping around, and he had upgraded batteries, and he said he could do 90 miles on a charge
Wow.
of this thing, at 12 miles an hour or whatever.
The hills are what kills you.
Yeah.
So if you had a nice flat road, there's not too much of that here.
Yeah.
You get a lot of hills and a lot of stuff like that.
Those were our nemesis last
But
year.
it is
The last
kind of
time.
amazing that they had this technology then,
Well,
and had they developed it from then as opposed to going hard into gas.
So they had electric cars, and the big reason is this: a lady were really starting to get out in the public because the men were supposed to be the people that drive the cars and stuff. Well, women's revolution came around, and now the women, especially wealthy women, like we're here in Newport, Rhode Island, the Vanderbilts, they wanted to drive their own vehicle. They didn't want to rely on a chauffeur, or they didn't want to rely on their husband to drive the car. So Newport was heavy into electric cars because the women wanted to be able to go to each other's homes for teas and social events. And so they'd park them in these carriage sheds with walls of chargers. And they would charge them. When Mrs. Vanderbilt would call for her car, stable guy would go and get the car, bring it up to the estate, and she'd drive it. Now, she's only going probably 3 miles.
Yeah.
But in New York
But
City...
they didn't have to do a big crank start.
So crank start would break your arm.
Yeah, yeah.
Lighting the fire on a steam car was really not anything they were interested in doing either, and burning themselves. So the electric car was the future.
Yeah.
In New York City, Baltimore, we're all really heavy, Philadelphia, into these electric cars because that's where the wealth was. Because electric car cost probably 3 times as much as a normal car back in that era.
Oh, so like today.
Do you know, were electric cars, I guess, either in your ownership or back then, easier, more reliable than petrol cars or
other than
cars?
Other than the batteries, because there's not too much going on.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so it was more reliable.
So you're driving the olds though. Or you're going to drive the
trade
Baker?
off, But my friend Ralph is with me, and then Lowell Paddock is coming, and Matt Strauss. So we're gonna trade back and forth and have a good time. Cool. Just having some fun. That's all.
Of course, it's fun.
That's just what we're here for.
It's fun until you're in first place, and then it becomes then it's a race. No, that's awesome. I can't wait to drive with you, and we have a car that should be able to keep up with everybody else.
You'll be passing me on the first corner.
I'm ready. Well, did you see that Panhard, that 8-liter Panhard they were firing up before? Like, that guy's going to be screaming up the road.
The gray one?
Yeah.
Gray, white. Yeah.
I restored that car.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
It sounds unbelievable.
Yeah, so we did the paint and the body on it at our shop.
It's not a lot of paint or body.
Evan and I got the car prepared mechanically and stuff. But
it seemed to be
that's
running
an awesome car.
great.
It's a hot rod. So that won the New York to Buffalo race. So it was the first car from New York to Buffalo, New York, was a race. And the driver was a Frenchman, and he came over, and he was test driving the car up and down Fifth Avenue and was going speeds like nobody ever saw before.
Yeah.
And they threw him in jail for speeding. And they had
Was
to
it one of the first ever speeding violations?
It was. And so they had to get a lawyer to get him out for the next day's race. It was quite a scene.
Yeah,
but
it's like
it's got
Gumball.
great history.
Yeah.
That car was Rob Kaufman's before. And
Yeah.
we do a lot of work for Rob. So
I asked the boys over at the Audrain if anyone in the last 3 years of doing the veteran run had gotten a speeding ticket in any of the veteran cars, and they said no, but there's always a first.
that's right. You never know. That could be one of them.
He said it could be you, and
Either the Yale, maybe. You never know.
I hope it will be.
Yeah.
Let's grab a couple off of the Patreon. Of course, if you want to catch the live streams, ask our guests questions for the show, or get the show ahead of anybody else. Patreon.com/The Smoking Tire Podcast is where you go. Zach, what do we got?
Joe asks, what is the most overrated car to restore, and cars that you wish were restored more often?
Wow. Overrated. Oh boy. I mean, there's a lot of. You really, I'm not a judge in too many places because I don't want to pick somebody's car apart, and so I don't want to pick somebody, over restoring a car or overrated restoration. People are passionate about everything. So, I go to the Muscle Car Nationals, and just the passion of muscle car guys is unbelievable. The passion of Porsche guys is just crazy. So I guess I can't really answer that question and make sure I don't get a lot of hate mail. Mm-hmm. But I think everybody's passionate about their cars, and the overrated stuff, it's all in what you want to do,
Well, like you said before, that math problem.
Yeah,
Are you prepared to put $300,000 or $400,000 into a car that's going to be worth $100,000 when you're done with it?
Exactly.
And that's when you get into sentimentality. Well, it was my father's car, or whatever. Or you don't care if they don't care about the money. Fine.
That's right.
But that math problem comes.
They'll care about the money someday. Yeah. The kids will care about the money. How come Dad spent $300,000 on that car?
I'll spin that one. What aspect of a restoration, when you're talking about restored versus over restored, what is the one thing that stands out to you that people most over restore? Is it the upholstery, the bright work, where they take it beyond?
Sometimes the bright work, so you open a hood and everything's chromed. You go, oh my God, what happened in there? And it's a matter of taste. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. People focus on the paint, and they want the paint to really look fabulous. And we see a lot of cars that come to us that have been restored, and it was a nut and bolt restoration. They come in and the paint looks great. We get it on the lift, and you want to throw up because everything under the car has never been touched.
Overspray everywhere.
Yeah, and there's bolts that are missing, and the incorrect bolts and incorrect shock absorbers. And you go, what were they thinking?
Yeah.
But what happened is that a lot of people, they set a budget on a car. They get to that budget and go over it, and they haven't even done the mechanical work on the car yet. All they want to do is have a shiny car.
Sure.
We do the exact opposite. We want to make sure that car runs perfectly. We want to make sure it stops perfectly. We want to make sure the mechanical part is perfect first. And then once you've spent that money, you want to paint it too? Okay, now we can go ahead and paint it because it's worthless if it just sits in the garage and you look at it and it's a shiny car.
Yeah.
If it doesn't drive.
Yeah.
And it doesn't give you back that experience that you expect.
Yeah.
And that's one thing with cars. I mean, it's a great experience in driving them. And each car is different, and that's what I like about my collection is that I love everything. So I just bought an Audi RS6 Avant wagon.
Nice. Yeah. They're cool. They're great.
2024, put your foot down, and it just goes.
Yeah.
I bought it so that I can put 4 people in the car, a dog, luggage, and go 200 miles an hour.
Yeah. You can do those things.
That car will do it.
We're about to sell one for a client at Westside Collector Car Storage,
that's
my
great.
shop. So we do. We list cars online for clients and stuff.
But my CTSV wagon,
they're great.
I have a 14.
Yeah.
It's probably more fun to drive because when you put your foot down, it breaks loose.
Yeah.
The back end starts to
squirrely.
wiggle around. With the Audi, it just squats down and goes.
Yeah.
And the Audis are great, but they are undramatic in that way.
Yeah.
They look great. They go really fast.
It looks so cool.
But they're not. It's not as exciting or raw as that CTSV wagon.
Exactly.
Those are really good.
Oh, what a car.
You could own one. If you had bought one of those new, every minute of it since would be free. I
got mine just right about 8 years ago, and a 14, and it's got 9,200 miles on it.
Perfect.
6-speed transmission.
I'm
just afraid to drive it because I don't want it to go over that 10,000 miles.
Oh no!
Just drive it.
Not Wayne. No, Wayne. You can't be afraid of that.
Just drive it.
Yeah.
I think we kind of answered all-wheel drive bias question. So Ryan Arbogast says, how do you see car enthusiasm changing or evolving over the next few decades?
Well, I hope that car shows will continue as we know them, but we've got a new generations coming up. Cars and Coffee has become so popular. I thought the concept when I first went to my first Cars and Coffee out in California. I said,
the Irvine one, the original one?
Yeah, at Ford.
Yeah.
And Tom Shaughnessy, I was going out to look at a Ferrari at Tom's, and he said, meet me at this location tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. I go, well, I get in about midnight. Okay, I'll be there. And I pulled in. I couldn't believe my eyes. I mean, it was this huge car show. It was at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And at 9 a.m., everybody just went home.
Yeah.
So it's a great concept because sometimes car shows can be evolving and just enormous, and it sucks up all of your time. I like having time with the family too and doing other stuff. But car shows are great. I hope that a lot of these rallies and a lot of these experiences like we're going to do tomorrow are going to grow and grow because using your car is more fun than just sitting at a show in your lawn chair and sitting there and everybody's looking at your car. What enjoyment. I don't get total enjoyment out of that.
Even buying a car for the purpose of an event, whether it's this or Monterey Historics or a Miele or whatever.
Right. That's the biggest thing.
It gives the car a purpose.
So my buddy Ralph Morano, he's the biggest Packard collector in the world, and he's got over 80 Packards. He loves car shows. He loves all that stuff. I said, but you're missing such a big important part of being a car guy is going on these rallies and events and meeting new people. And so he's been on this with me before. He's going with me tomorrow. We've done the London to Brighton together, which we didn't quite make it to the end, so we're going to have to do that. But I wanted him to do the Colorado Grand. So I love the Colorado Grand. I think it's one of the best events in the country.
Yeah, Bruce Meyer won't shut up about it. He loves that one.
I think it's the best. So I just recently I have an Arnold Bristol Roadster that I'm going to take on it.
Okay.
And I'm looking for a Porsche Speedster. So I buy one out in Denver, and that's the car that Ralph's going to drive, and I'll drive the Arnold Bristol. Then we'll switch cars back and forth. So a purpose, just like you were saying.
Yeah.
That little Speedster is a good car. It'll do 80 miles an hour all day without any problems.
Everybody takes 356s on those.
It's just
on that
a nice,
it's
cool little car.
Yeah.
I think the driving events will are more memorable. Like I don't have any memories of going to a car. I mean, I can remember going to car shows, but there's no like, oh, this moment at this Cars and Coffee was amazing.
Yeah.
But if you go on a drive or a rally or a trip, you're going to have experiences that will stick with you.
That's kind of why I was okay selling my 328. I drove it to Pebble Beach 2 years ago for the car week. Drove it to Arizona once. I drove it to Carmel for a vacation a different time. So I've got the memories of these adventures, and so now it's kind of okay to move on.
I think I've really expanded my hot rod collecting over the past few years, and the reason is the hot rodder guys, they love going on cars, on rides together. Mm-hmm. They love going to places and going on 5 or 6 day runs together. And so I think that's what drove me to really start collecting more and more hot rods.
Yeah. I'm tempted. I see John, Bothwell going on these crazy mountain climbing things in his locomobile and whatever. And I go, I can get into one of those for like reasonable money. I want to go up a mountain.
Sure.
In this crazy
going
old
up
car.
Is one thing. Coming down
I
on
know.
old cars is the next thing.
Coming down is sketchy.
But I think with the new generation of car owners, people say the hobby is being lost. There's nobody going to take it over. I disagree with that totally, because sometimes, especially this next or last generation, nobody wanted to get their driver's license until they were 21 years old, 22 years old. But once they do, they catch the bug. So they're driving a Honda. That's great, because someday that guy's going to probably buy a Duesenberg. Mm-hmm. All it is getting that passion.
Yeah.
Once you get the passion, whether it start off with, I start off with Volkswagens, little Beetles, and I've got a huge collection of really unique cars.
And we see stuff like at the Audrain Concours. There's the under 30. What's the class called? Something with 30 under 30.
Yeah.
And the
so
car is pre-1930, and the person who owns it has to be under 30.
No, they have to be under 30, and you can't spend more than 30
grand
on a car.
Excuse me. Yeah.
So I just met a young lady yesterday that's bringing her Toyota Supra. And she's in the 30 under 30 this year in the fall show.
Perfect.
Yeah. So it's good, and the more kids we can get in, the better. But the analogy is, you grow up, and when you're in high school, you sneak a beer, and then when you go to college, you do shots, and then you finally grow up and drink fine wine. Mm-hmm. So you start.
I was wondering where that was going to evolve to.
That's a good analogy.
How old are you when you start heroin?
Well, because look at you, as you said at the top of the show, you're trying to buy cars that nobody else has, or really obscure stuff, because you have a refined palate, and you've done the other things before. You've driven the other stuff.
Yeah, and I've never being disparaged to anyone for what they own. People say, what kind of car should I buy? I really want to get into the hobby. I want to be part of this organization, this real club type thing. And I say, buy something that nobody else has got.
Yeah.
Because if you go to a show and there's 100 Mustangs and you buy a Mustang, you're just one of the 100.
Sure.
But if you show up in a Pinto station wagon, everybody's going to talk to you. Because they haven't seen one of those in a long time, or a Volkswagen. Everybody's got a story about a VW.
Yeah.
Oh, my uncle, we got 20 kids in the car once in a Volkswagen. Everybody's got a story, and we'll talk to you.
And that's how you can get into a collectible car cheap.
That's right.
I mean, those cars are often affordable,
That's where Concorded Lemons comes in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so good.
Yeah.
Because people show up, they got the crappiest cars around, but they're having fun.
And even like Radwood, where it's like, I found a 5,000 mile Pontiac Bonneville SSE. I mean, what is that? $4,000? Like, and you're winning a trophy.
But find something that's really unusual. So if you find that Bonneville that's got a 4-speed on the floor with a bench seat, an HO engine, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
That's the little gold nugget.
Lumina Z34.
What was the car up at Good Vibes for a while? The guy Tesla swapped an old Jaguar.
Oh, it was like a 30s Jaguar, like a old Jaguar.
And he was always surrounded because, one, it's a project. He built it himself. That's amazing. But this is a sea of 911s and M3s that usually attend Good Vibes. It's very Porsche heavy. And this person drove this project.
Yeah, it was up a mountain.
Miles up a
mountain. It was
mountain.
impressive.
Yeah,
And
unusual cars are cool. I mean, it was amazing. My wife, who's I never really considered her a car girl, but recently, because my grandchildren love my car collection, so they visit it quite often. And we have a Davis, a 3-wheel Davis.
Oh, yeah.
And she says, never sell that car. I go, where did that come from? Yeah. I just love that car.
Yeah. My wife is not that into cars, but she has a Nissan POW.
Yeah.
it's her favorite thing in the world.
Yeah.
It's like a
You
beach
just
chair
never
with
know
wheels.
who's gonna, what's gonna turn somebody on.
Yeah. I want to let you go. We got one more, and then we're gonna let you go bid on what are you going to bid?
1911 Model T.
Oh, the Model T, right? Yeah.
All the pizza in my belly says, Wayne, have you seen a resurgence of young talent in the many specialized areas of restoration lately? It seems that this has been one of the positives of social media because it exposes kids to the field and also shows that they can make income either on the side or primarily.
Well, so I'm on the board of McPherson College, McPherson, Kansas, where we have a restoration program in the college. It's a wonderful thing. I have a young man that graduated there last year, interned with us, and then he's a full-time employee. So going to those schools, the biggest problem that we've had is shop class disappeared out of the school systems.
Right.
And it was really the worst thing in the world for car guys because 90% of the guys that go into fixing cars in the field, they fix plug and play. So they're computer guys that now are in the cars. Where if you set, and what I did is I went to McPherson, I set of points, I had a condenser, I had a coil, I had a carburetor, and I said, okay, tell me what that is. And the guy, I have no idea. It was a set of points. So what you have to do is teach these young people from the ground up again what they're about. We're also doing some work with a school down in Georgia to have a restoration program there. But there's girls like Riley, and so Riley's carburetors, and Riley wanted a car.
Oh, I think I read a story about Riley
She's
in
so
Haggerty or one sports car market or something recently.
We interviewed Riley a little while ago, and so she's going to Connecticut College, so she's up by me, and she comes in the shop every once in a while. But her dad said, you're going to buy your own car. You have to earn the money to buy your first car. So at 14 years old, she tried to get a job, and it's paying $6, $8 an hour. She said, I'll never be able to do that. So she's out in the garage, and her dad's fixing cars, and she says, so what kind of carburetor is this? Well, that's a Holly. Oh, really? What kind of? So she started tinkering and taking them apart and figuring them out. Well, now she's the biggest carburetor repair girl in the world. She takes them, she dials them in, she rebuilds them, she sets them up, and she just ships them back to people. She has 3 other girls working for her now in her garage at her house while she's at college rebuilding carburetors.
Wow.
So things like that can spark an interest in somebody. If Riley can do it, I can do it. And I think that that's really the future. But having to find things like upholsterers, oh my gosh.
That's hard.
That's very difficult.
It's hard.
And it's an art. And you got to start somewhere.
And everyone who does it is 1,000 years old. It's really
we have our guy Quid, and Quid's in his 60s, and he retired.
Quid is not the name of a young man.
But he's a fabulous upholsterer, and he can look at a car and he does it. He knows what to do. It's second nature to him. But it's trial and error, and so we need more people, upholsterers in our industry, body men and paint men. But those are talents that you have to have a certain talent to do it. It just doesn't come naturally. It's sort of like being an artist.
Yeah.
If you can't draw or you can't do something, nobody can really train you how to do that. They can give you the basics. Ed Wellburn, another good example. Ed knew what he wanted to do when he was a teenager. He went to the automobile show in Detroit, and he applied to GM. He says, I want to work for you guys. He ended up going to the art center and became the chief of design for General Motors. The vice president of global design, because he had that drive. And so that's what it takes. Focus on what you want to do, and don't and there's nothing wrong. Everybody, we need lawyers, we need doctors, we need all these things, but there's other facets. Be the best plumber in the world.
The people that I know that specialize in anything in cars. I mean, be great at any one thing. They make fabulous livings.
Yeah.
They support their family. They buy toys. They go on vacations. They have good lives, and they typically not with no stress ever, but they typically get to do what they love.
And that's what you have to do. I mean, I do what I love. I was very fortunate. I grew up with my dad, and I got his brother, his uncles worked. Everybody worked hard in our family. Worked 7 days a week, and I got that work ethic from him. But yet I said, I don't really want to do that 7 days a week. I sort of like to play a little bit. I was surfing at the time. I wanted to go dad. I wanted to go play with my buddies. And so I became an art teacher, and I found out that wasn't going to make it for me. I couldn't find the job I liked, so I went back to work for Dad. And here I am, many years later, doing what I love. And people say, when are you going to retire? I said, for what?
Yeah.
I'm doing what I love.
I'm good.
Most people retire to do something else that they really love because they don't love what they're doing.
Yeah.
But I love what I do. I love going out and meeting people. Chasing classic cars has been an unbelievable experience in my life. I get to go out and see so many people. I'm recognized everywhere I go. I meet people that I thought I could never even shake their hand, and now they're my best friends.
Yeah.
Don Perdone, good example.
Yeah.
I wanted to shake Don's hand because I've always followed his career. We're in California at the Jet Center party. And I saw him over in the corner. I said, Mr. Perdone, could I shake your hand? He goes, oh, my God, you're Wayne Carini. Can I get my picture taken?
It inverts sometimes.
It's so crazy. And you, too. I mean, all these people, it's so great. And I think that's the focus. Cars are great, but people are more important than cars.
I agree.
But we all get together. We could be collecting stamps or coins, but cars are a little more interesting to me.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. If you're passionate about what you're doing and your other friends are as passionate about it as you are, it's the greatest thing in the world.
That's fantastic. That's a perfect place to end. I want you to be able to get back and go buy your 1911 Model T, maybe. Thank you, Wayne. It's been a pleasure. I can't wait to drive with you tomorrow and see you out on the road in some 120-year-old cars. And you guys know where to find Wayne.
I'll be in your draft.
Yeah. Suck my wind, baby.
I'll be out. Are you smoking your tires? I'm
yeah, buddy. I'm dropping the clutch on 10 horsepower. Let's go. Thank you very much, Wayne Carini on the Smoking Tire Podcast. We'll see you guys next time with Donald Osborne in front of a live studio audience at the Audrain Museum on Monday. Bye.